All right, we'd like to call this meeting of the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District to order, please. If you could please rise to the pledge, and Noah, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Suzette, could you roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Justum,
Yes. Here.
Ms. Klug,
Here.
Mr. Ustruck,
Here.
Mr. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Mr. Schultz,
Here.
Mr. Sikich,
Present remotely.
and President Emmons.
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any additions or modifications to tonight's agenda? Tonight, Deidre is playing the role of Dr. Lexman this evening, so there's no changes on your behalf?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the public hearing on waivers per Wisconsin statute 118.31, parent 1, parent B, and clauses 115 to 121. Deidre, would you like to begin that conversation?
I would, thank you.
Yes.
So just to give some context on why this is important, as we know, as a state and as a nation, we've all had to make adjustments to the educational plan for our learners for this particular school year due to the need to physically close our schools. And so in that, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction has done a really beautiful job at trying to support school districts to be able to say, what can we do to support our learners best in this community and in this environment? And then what would be the requirements that we would need to be meeting during this time that we would normally otherwise be doing or needing to meet? And then if we feel like as a system that you aren't able to meet all of those things, then you would do something to apply for a waiver from the state of Wisconsin. And so there's two areas where we are looking to have a public hearing to get input on. One is the waiving of the instructional hours. And so what that means is the normal requirements for school districts are that we have to have 437 hours of direct pupil instruction in kindergarten, 1,050 hours of direct pupil instruction in grades 1 through 6, 1,137 hours of direct pupil instruction in grades 7 through 12. So that's what's required normally under the statute for the state of Wisconsin for instructional hours for the course of the school year. Well, clearly we don't have students right now that we're asking to be online for 8 hours a day, right? And so therefore, if we added up all of the hours that we've had so far, our calendars are built for a couple of snow days in the middle of there. So they're built so that if we had a snow day or two, we could still meet this minimum requirement for instructional hours. In our current format, with the amount of time that we're providing direct instruction to learners, we would not be able to meet the instructional hours as they're normally outlined in the statute. So the state has said any school district that applies for the waiver of the instructional hours, it will be granted. And so that's what the state has said. So we are looking to get some input on the fact that we would like to apply for a waiver to those specific hours. Some of the questions that came in today, Suzette forwarded those to me so that I could get some context and make sure that we're answering the questions that the community has had so far, are around our learners with special needs and what does this mean for our learners with special needs. And of course, that's a really sensitive topic, as you know, the guidance from the U.S. Department of Education and the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction has been do what you can for your students with special needs to the maximum extent possible. And so that gave us some guidance, which was helpful, but nothing really super specific to be able to determine how we're going to make those services going forward. And so we are attempting to do the services for our children with special needs as best we can, given the circumstances that we're in, knowing that we are going to have lots of situations where compensatory services need to be considered when this is all said and done. And individual IEP teams will be meeting when this is all said and done, when we're allowed to physically be together again, to determine if there are any needs for compensatory services. right now, we are taking a lot of guidance from our legal counsel, as well as from other districts in our area, from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, and from the U.S. Department of Education to say, what does that actually mean we legally need to be doing? And then as a group and as a society, what do we want to make sure that we are doing to provide for the needs of all of our learners, both those that qualify as children with special needs and everyone else as well. And so some of that we don't know all the answers to yet, but we'll be doing some work with the case managers. Right now, special ed case managers are keeping track of services that are being provided and services that are unable to be provided so that those IEP teams have a basis on which to meet when this is all said and done. And then we'll be getting a lot of advice from our legal counsel, because this is obviously new waters for us and uncharted territory to try to figure out how to make sure that we're meeting the needs of everyone. Another question came up in the documentation, which was around, are we going to continue to pay our teachers throughout the course of this? And yes, we have no intention to do anything different with staffing or any of those things. We don't have an intention right now to do anything different with the amount of contact hours that we've been able to maintain so far. We are listening to our families and hearing from some of them where some of this has been too much and some of it families would like a little bit more push, and we're making those adjustments with the feedback as quickly as we can to make sure that the prime focus of our learning right now is to maybe try a few new things with our teaching and learning practices. It's to keep those connections to our learners every day, and then it's to provide some of the stability of school when everything else is a little unstable at the present moment. So we don't have an intention to drastically alter the instructional plan that we have right now, outside of doing a few new and interesting things in the course of the next couple of weeks, as we're supporting our teachers through trying something new. But we don't have an intention to do anything different than that at the present moment, but we do need to apply for the waiver in order to say the minutes that we've had so far, right, we aren't going to be held to the letter of the law when it comes to those minutes. So I think that kind of answers most of the questions that were brought forward before we started this. The other waiver that we would be looking to apply for is a waiver for the educator effectiveness system. And so under state statute, we need to, and Jeff Thompson can jump in here if I miss anything. Under our state statute, we have to evaluate and do a summative evaluation every 3 years for our staff. And so what we are looking to do with the waiver is to be able to say, we're completing those summative evaluations this year, or that the staff would have the ability to say, I don't feel like I have enough time or the ability right now to complete that cycle. And they would be given the option to repeat that third year cycle next year instead, keeping all the information they have so far, but giving them the ability to say, yes, I'd prefer to just repeat the year 3 cycle next year and have the opportunity to collect some more information before I go forward with my third year summative evaluation where the scores are assigned and the self-assessment is done. Anything else to add to that one, Jeff?
No, I was just going to say another option that districts can have conversations about. They can waive the summative year for a year 3 staff member, and then that staff member would begin a new cycle the next year. So that would be another option that a waiver would have to be filled out for DPI.
So those are the 2 waivers that we are looking to pursue at the present time. And that is the opportunity for the public to give some input on that. The board will take action on that next week to go forward with either choosing to apply for the waivers or giving us some additional guidance.
So the next item then, Deidre, is whether or not we have comments and questions first from our public before we move on to board questions based on that. Are we ready to move into that section?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 6.1, which is public questions and comments on the public hearing, which is on the 2 waivers themselves. So if you have comments, you are on the Zoom live, and so you can unmute. Just remember to, for all public comments, we do require your name and address for public record. And you'll have a couple minutes to address Deidre and the board and our administrative staff on the questions on the waivers. So we'll go ahead and take those in order that they pop up. Thank you. And if you are unmuted, you will come up as a speaker. So Do we have any public comments or questions on the waivers?
Hi, this is Alex Schultz, 726 South 119th. Question about the waiver. Is that going to affect the start date for school for the 2020 to 2021 school year?
That's an excellent question, and we do not, excuse me for 1 second as my son walks through the room. Right now, we do not have any guidance from the state of Wisconsin around that just yet. Sorry about that. So we do not have any guidance right now. Right now, the stay-at-home order that's in effect from the governor is until April 24th. So we are anxiously awaiting some further guidance from the state, and we'll follow that guidance. At this point, we're not eligible to be open for face-to-face learning, and we'll continue to monitor that. If we are eligible to be open for face-to-face learning yet this school year, then we will pursue those options and hopefully get back into schools. And so right now we're awaiting that guidance. The waiver of the instructional hours actually has nothing to do with the start of school in the fall. So it shouldn't impact that at all. It's simply to allow us the opportunity to waive those instructional hours that we would be obligated to in the 1920 school year. And then there's a question in the chat that says, has the date for the last day of school remained the same? As of right now, yes. The date for the last day of school is intended to remain the same until such time as we get further guidance from the state of Wisconsin on what's going to be allowable and what's not. In some states across our country, they've determined that school will not be able to be open for the remainder of the school year. In some states around our country, they're determining a different end date to the school year. And so those are things that we're still waiting on some guidance from DPI for.
Are there any other public comments on the waivers through the public hearing?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm Jennifer Higgins. We live at 13305 West Wilbur Drive. If we ask for a waiver, do we set a new standard, or is it just kind of whatever? I mean, do we say, okay, we want X amount of hours instead of usual? Or is it just really up in the air?
That's a good question. So all it does is it gives us the right to waive the requirement from the state for those hours that I read earlier, the 4:37, the 10:50, and the 11:37. I wrote them all down so I get them right. So that's all the waiver allows us to do, is it allows us some flexibility, and you only apply for it for the year in which you apply for the waiver. So the waiver would just apply to this school year. It does not change anything about next school year. It doesn't change anything, and you don't apply for the waiver and say, this is what we're doing instead. You simply apply for the waiver from the state. And as I indicated before, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction has indicated that they will say yes and support whatever waivers come forward, as they know school districts aren't taking some of the hours that are required.
Okay, so would our plan still be to keep doing like the roughly 3 hours of work, that kind of thing, as a district, or do we know yet?
That is the plan as of right now. If we get the opportunity to go back to schools, then certainly we will do that and try to create some sense of normalcy for families and for students as best we can. But right now we're waiting for some further guidance from the state and making our adjustments and informing families as soon as we have the information to share.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I'm seeing some other questions in the chat. And so what resources will be offered to parents who have to go back to work and cannot do the action program? Those are all things that we are certainly considering, and we are sympathetic to the fact that our rec department has been able to offer such to our families, and that is on a bit of a pause. So we are investigating some options around that. I don't have an answer around that right now, but we are looking to figure out a way to support our families with being able to open under some kind of guidance right now. So we're investigating those options. And then the other comment was that it seems like there's strict guidelines on homework and it's making it stressful on families. And please communicate any of those stressors that you may have to your child's teacher. We are taking that feedback really seriously, and we're making adjustments where we can based on the feedback we're getting from staff and the feedback we're getting from families. So if you're feeling like this is stressful, and this is a very stressful time, we know that, and we want to make sure people feel supported, please reach out to your child's teacher or your child's principal, and they will happily work with you on what you need for your child.
Are there any other public comments on the hearing on the 2 waiver requests?
My name is Colleen Stepp, and I'm at 3175 South 42nd Street. I'm a teacher in the district, and today the state superintendent was speaking about the waivers, but also speaking about how they aren't waiving anything when it comes to like high school earning credits, requirements for graduation, and that kind of thing. So as, you know, as an invested teacher in the district and my student success, will we get further information on that? Has there been anything kind of decided or anything within our district, how we're moving forward with that?
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. That's a great question. So there is an option for a waiver to adjust some of what's required under the graduation requirements. And at the present moment, our district administrative team has decided not to pursue that waiver. We're working really closely with our high schools to be sure that our students, especially our seniors, are on track for graduation. And we have some pretty extensive plans to assure that kids are getting their needs met and making sure that we can get students through to graduation. So that is where that one is at this time. We are not pursuing that waiver at the present moment, and we'll work within our board policies and with what's allowed under the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction guidance, and then individual students with families if we need to make some adjustments based on their need to make sure that kids graduate on time.
Okay, so then a follow-up question, as a Spanish teacher, and I know there's talk of going forward with castle project. As a Spanish teacher, you know, my students would still be needing to earn their elective credits to graduate. So would that be an active part of that process?
Yeah, and those are all things that teachers will work on directly with their principals as we go forward. And so if you have some further questions about that, that's where I would say is a really good place to direct those is to Mr. Lesser or to the team at HIP.
Great, I really appreciate it, thank you.
You're welcome. And then there's one more question in the chat around that we don't have a confirmed return to school date. Can we clarify when we'll get an answer? Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't clarify when we'll get an answer at the present moment because, again, we're waiting for some guidance from the state of Wisconsin. And so there's all kinds of things that the state is being making sure that they're doing their due diligence on to make some decisions around. And at the present moment, we do not have any further guidance from the state. As soon as we get it, we will share that with families because this is certainly, I'm sure, a stressor as it has been on myself and my family, as all of you, just this not knowing. And so as of right now, we're following the guidance with the potential end date of this being April 24th. The state superintendent has advised to be thinking about making plans for it to go longer, but we have not received official word from the state on extending the safer at home order, which would then require us to continue having our physical buildings be closed. So I apologize, we don't have more of an answer on that one, but we will share that information the minute it is made available to us and communication can be done with the board. We will get you that information as soon as possible.
Are there any other public comments on the hearing?
Paul Hiddle, 2157 South 94th Street. I guess with the waiver that would be approved for the variation to instructional hours, is there any consideration that would be given towards a different level of engagement and participation of the different schools, classes, and students with the hours that they're putting in at home?
Could you be a little bit more specific with that, Paul? Are you talking about more hours or fewer hours or kind of speaking than we have now?
Right, so it's just different schools and classes, right? Are having the students participate 2 to 3 hours a day. Some are putting in more hours, some putting in less hours. So when we go back, there might be a gap between how many hours the students have and how engaged they are in online activities.
Yeah, and so we don't exactly have a plan for what that would look like when we go back yet. There's some of those things that we're just gonna have to navigate once we are allowed to be open again, as to if there were some instructional gaps created during that time that we need to address, or if there were some acceleration things that we could be doing with students that we need to address. Those are all things that we'll have to take into consideration once we're all back in schools. Does that help answer your question, Paul?
It did, thank you.
Okay. The waiver of elective credits. Oh, and so just to clarify, there's a question from Aaron Newell in the chat box. It says from 938 South 36th Street. How does the waiver affect elective credits that are normally more hands-on work learning, like metal and woodworking? And so those classes have continued in the format that they can, given this unusual circumstance. Some of the courses where our students are able to do youth apprenticeship and job shadows and things like that, the team and our career and technical education team is working diligently with those teachers to try to figure out how we make sure that our students have the opportunity to meet some of those requirements as best they can. In some cases, we can't replicate some of what we would have done in a building at home. And therefore, we have to do the best we can with the circumstances that we have, and then hopefully, if we are allowed to be back in schools, then use that time to do some of that application work that would have been done in labs and shops and things when we're back in session, if we're allowed to be.
Any other public comments on the hearing? Okay, then we will move on to item 6.2, which is questions and comments from the board members and or administrative staff. Are there any board members that have any questions based on the feedback and comments we've heard thus far? So the action for the item will take place at our next board meeting, which is on April 24th. So that will be on the agenda at that meeting. Next week, I think, is just a workshop, correct? Yeah, so that will be on our agenda for April 24th. 27th. I don't know why I can't remember the dates now in April. But April 24th will be that, or 27th will be that next meeting. And that's when these items will be officially voted on for request of DPI for those waivers. And again, should anything change between now and then that would influence how we would take action on the 27th. So if there are no other
and
comments.
Sorry, Stephanie,
Good,
can
Deidre, go
I add
ahead.
just one more comment to
Absolutely.
that, just so everyone's aware? This is very standard protocol for districts in our area. There are several other of these public hearings taking place tonight around our area, as well as other districts that have already gone forward to vote to apply for the waiver. So this is not anything unique to the West Allis, West Milwaukee School District in our current situation.
This is Gary Schultz. I do have a question. So for some of the questions and information that were asked by the public, do we have a process we're going to use to disseminate answers to the public prior to our meeting in 2 weeks to vote on this?
We haven't discussed a process for that specifically, Gary, but certainly Suzette has been forwarding any emails to me so that I can answer some of those questions, and I'd be happy to just CC the full board on any of those responses that come in the course of the next 2 weeks before it's brought forward for action, if that would help.
Okay. And then as far as disseminating to the public prior to the meeting, do we have a plan for that?
The further questions, we do not have a plan for that, but if we wanted to create some kind of FAQ or something like that to put on the website, I think that would be perfectly okay with me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
So then that will conclude the public hearing on the waivers. And then we will, again, that will be brought back up in the meeting on the 27th. And again, if there's communication that will happen between now and then, to keep checking the website, we'll make sure that we have a FAQ up there to continue to communicate before we go to vote on the 27th. So thank you, everybody, for your participation in the public hearing, for your questions, and for our staff for providing that information. We will then move on into the agenda this evening for our traditional public comments as part of our normal regularly scheduled board meeting. And so we can take public comments at this time. And again, if you remember to please provide your name and address for the record, and you do have up to 3 minutes to address the board on public comments, and this can be on anything, not just on the public hearing. is as a reminder that the board does not respond or engage during the meeting, but rather you would receive a response before our next scheduled board meeting in 2 weeks. So are there any public comments from anyone on the call? Okay, I have not gotten any notification of any public comments for the meeting as a whole. So we will then move on to item 8, our superintendent's report. Deidre, do you want to begin that?
I think, are we okay? Okay. So we'll start tonight with the legislative update. And so let me just pull that document up. So for our legislative update tonight for April 13th, for the state, the Supreme Court reinstates in-person voting for April 7th, 2020, as many of us already know. The state's Supreme Court overturned Governor Evers' order pushing back in-person voting until June amid the COVID-19 pandemic. U.S. District Judge William Connolly extended the deadline for voters to submit absentee ballots from April 7th, 2020 to 4 p.m. on April 13th, 2020, and ordered the state to waive requirements that absentee voters have a witness sign their ballot. 2021 budget planning. We are following possible budgetary difficulties stemming from the COVID-19 public health crisis and economic slowdown. Until recently, what appeared to be a stable and predictable budget building environment for 2020 to 2021 is suddenly neither stable nor predictable. Rapid deceleration of the state economy is expected to create a sharp downturn in state revenues for the fourth quarter of 2019 to 2020, a trend which almost certainly will continue for the first 2 quarters of 2020-2021, and perhaps well beyond. At the same time, demands on state resources are increasing substantially for all aspects of the state's COVID-19 response. We will be watching for the Legislative Fiscal Bureau's next economic forecast due in mid-May. And for the federal legislative updates, there is no updates at this time.
Thank you very much.
On to district recognitions. In the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District, we're really proud to announce that 5 schools have received the Wisconsin Title I Schools of Recognition for the 1920 school year. Since 2003, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction has recognized Title I schools that have demonstrated success in educating students. To be eligible, schools must receive Title I funding to provide services to large numbers or high percentages of economically disadvantaged children and meet other achievement criteria. Those schools for us this year are Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate School, Horace Mann Elementary School, Longfellow Elementary School, Pershing Elementary School, and Wilson Elementary School. Title I schools of recognition are in the top 25% of high poverty schools in the state and have above average student achievement in reading and math when compared to schools from similarly sized district schools, grade configurations, and poverty levels. So that's an accomplishment for us to have 5 schools be recognized by the state of Wisconsin for that achievement. Usually there is quite a large celebration and a lunch and a bunch of opportunity to celebrate with staff, which has obviously been delayed this year. So we're looking for opportunities, and we'll continue to find a way to celebrate that huge accomplishment with our staff when we're able to. Walker Elementary School, congratulations to Morgan Noster, Kristen Brunel, and the rest of Walker PBIS Committee for receiving the Wisconsin Schools of Character Promising Practices Award from the Wisconsin Character Education Partnership. The WCEP has chosen Walker's practice of success skills to serve as a model for other schools in the state. Their practice will be listed on the website, which is in the notification for tonight, wicharacter.org website, and will be considered a best practice for others to review as they develop their character education initiatives. And then the last thing is COVID-19 online learning for students and families. On Tuesday, March 17th, our students and families have been working very hard to adjust to the new online learning format. We had a really successful transition to this. And again, I think we went very gung-ho at the start, and we've made some needed adjustments as we've gone on. And families, please continue to reach out to your teachers and to your principals if you are struggling with some of the practices or struggling at home, so that we can make sure you have the supports you need. We are very, very thankful to every single student, parent, and family member for working hard to make all of the opportunities for our kids continue during this really challenging time. And today was our first day back after spring break, and we had a very high rate of participation of students coming back online, and we had so many teachers still offering optional opportunities for our learners last week, even though we were on spring break. And so that was very, very powerful. So we thank them for all of their efforts.
Thank you very much. Were there any other updates or any other items from the last meeting, teacher, that you're aware of?
No.
Okay, thank
Nothing
you.
else.
Thank you very much. We will then move on to item 9, the board president's report, taking a look at the board calendar. Today is April 13th. We have a regular Board of Education meeting, which you're all participating in right now. And immediately following, we do have a workshop on a facilities update. And then immediately following that, we do have a closed session meeting. Next Monday, April 20th, beginning at 6 p.m., we do have a board workshop, and immediately following, we do have a closed session meeting. On Monday, April 27th, starting at 6 o'clock, we have a regular Board of Education meeting. Our spring elected board members will take their oath of office at that time. And immediately following, we will have a workshop on the proposed 2020-2021 budget and preliminary tax levy number 1. Then we will have 2 regular Board of Education meetings on May 11th at 6 p.m. and at May 18th at 6 p.m. as well. Do any board members have any community events to update? Okay, we will then move on to our consent agenda this evening. There are 3 items. Item 10.1, the approval of the minutes from the March 23rd, 2020 regular Board of Education meeting. Item 10.2, the employment summary. And item 10.3, the supplementary contracts. Moved, and do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We've got moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent.
Stephanie, could I jump in there and take
Yes,
a little
please do.
pause just
Yep,
to
I saw
introduce
Stacy's online.
Stacy Lang, who
Mhm.
was recognized in the employment summary as being appointed the principal at Walker Elementary, who I think is still on the Zoom call. I just wanted to turn the floor over to Stacy for a moment, if that's okay, just to introduce herself. And as many of you have known her for a very long time, but officially in this new role. So we're thrilled to have her on board, and we want to just congratulate her.
Hello, hopefully I'm unmuted. Hi, I am Stacy Lang, and I just want to say I am proud to have worked in this school district for over 11 years now, and I am truly honored to have this opportunity to be the principal of Walker Elementary. I am so passionate about bringing high quality education to all of our students, and building strong relationships with the students, the parents, and the community has been and will continue to be a focus for my staff and myself. We have focused on promoting, and as you heard, helping our students and staff develop character education skills that will help them be successful in life. And I want to continue that work that we have started and just recognized for as well. So thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to be the principal of Walker, and I am looking forward to continuing the great work that we have started. Thank you.
Welcome.
Congratulations, Stacy.
Congratulations.
Looking forward to working with you.
Welcome, congrats. Welcome aboard.
Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to our action items this evening. We have 2 items. Item 11.1 is the approval of the CISA number 1 contract for the 2020-2021 school year. Deidre, do you want to take that?
Sure, yep. So this is a standard action item for us at this time of year. We are fortunate in our area to have CISA One as a resource. They're a pretty amazing partner for us in much of the work that we are doing. We've been re-engaging with the Institute for Personalized Learning in some new ways this year that have been exciting for us and have been some great opportunities to learn and grow, as well as some great opportunities to show off some of the amazing work we're doing in West Dallas, West Milwaukee. So there are elements and details within that contract, as I'm sure you guys have seen. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. A few of the line items are we still do have some services for students with special needs when their needs can't be met in a public school for safety reasons or for A reason that IEP team determines, we do still purchase some seats through CISA One. It is great for us now that it's located in the Parkway building where CISA One still rents those facilities, that the services can be provided so close to home, which was not always the case before that. So those line items are in that contract as well. And if anyone has any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Noah, did you have a question?
Yeah, just with everything that's happened, is this contract something that we're utilizing regardless if we're in the buildings or not? All the different things?
No, the microphone is this way.
All-
I don't
well,
know if this she can hear you better.
So when it comes for this contract, so like for right now, the contract that we have for this year, is this something that we utilize regardless if the students are in buildings or not?
Oh, yes, good question, Noah, thank you. So yes, it is something. So the places to which we are paying tuition on behalf of some of the learners, those places have continued in a format with those learners. They have the relationship with those learners. They've continued the services during this time when buildings are closed, much like we have as a school district, or we would have made some adjustments to that. So yes, we are accessing the services that are outlined in the contract. We are still participating in the School Improvement Network, which is a collaboration that Adam or myself, or when we can, both of us attend, and that's all the area directors of curriculum and instruction. And then I go to one as well called RSN, which is all the directors in the area of student services. So those meetings are still happen. They just went to a format much like the one that we're in right now, and they've been great resources to us during this time just to get a gauge on making sure that our practices are in line with the other districts in our area. So we've been thankful that they've continued. Things like the DAC network, which is the District Assessment Coordinator Network. Adam's gotten a lot of really good information from that system as this has gone forward, and it's really helped us to stay up to date, and then again, consistent with the practices of other school districts in our area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the contract? All right, then we would look for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. We move on to item 11.2, the boys hockey co-op.
So Suzette, this is one that I'm gonna need a little bit more information with. I know we are in a co-op for boys hockey, and we would like to continue that, but do you have can you email me the documentation for that one?
I think we're currently
In a girls.
girls, it's currently girls.
Okay.
So we're
This
adding
looks
boys.
new.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't-
okay. So then we definitely want to get the information so that I can share that. I apologize that I didn't have that in advance.
This was sent from Justin Marion, Athletic Director at Central. And,
Do you want me to read parts of the co-op agreement?
sure, I can.
So it lists the different schools in the
Forward that.
co-op. It would be students from West Allis Central, so there's been interest in West Allis Central. They would participate in the Classic 8. I don't see where the host school,
I think there's 3 kids from Central.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I apologize. I've been able to pull it up now so I can give some more information. I apologize about that. Yep, so this would be a new agreement for us for hockey, and it looks like there are quite a few schools in the co-op.
Yeah.
Franklin, Greendale, Greenfield, New Berlin Eisenhower, New Berlin West, Oak Creek, Pius, St. Francis, Union Grove, Waterford, West Allis Central, and Whitnall. And this would be for there to be a boys hockey co-op. And that would run from, it looks like, in the winter sports season, starting on normally April 1st, but obviously that would be pushed back this year.
So again, the purpose of the co-op is because most schools can't field their own team. So they cooperate with additional schools to make sure that the students that have interest and want to participate in these sports have access to do so. West Allis, West Milwaukee has several co-ops that we are parts of, so this is not an unusual program there either, where we share resources to give our kids the most opportunities to participate in activities. Any questions on the co-op from the board members?
Is there any idea on cost?
I would assume it's just like the girls where the families are responsible.
Shared
for the
equally
cost.
amongst the families of the student athletes, so obviously they
Yeah.
would know the cost going in, and it would be up to them to participate.
Yeah, this just gives us the ability under the WIAA rules to allow our students to participate and compete as part of a co-op versus as part of a individually school-sponsored sport.
Any other questions on the co-op? Now we'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you all very much. All right, then we will move seamlessly into our workshop for this evening, item 12.1, which is a facilities update. So we can go right in, Steve, if you're online, which I think I saw you earlier, if you want to jump in, and we'll get that presentation going.
Okay, I'm online, hopefully everybody can hear me, and I'm going to share my screen so you hopefully will be able to see the PowerPoint presentation. Are you able to see it now?
Hold on one second. Brandon's coming over in just a second. We're going to get those. He's got to grant you permission to share the screen. So hang on 1 minute.
Okay.
We'll get that taken care of.
Steve, did you press the screen button?
I did. Is it not showing up?
No.
Okay. Let me go back and do it again.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. Okay. So everybody can see it then as well?
Yep.
Correct.
Go,
Okay.
go for it.
So here's an agenda for this evening and some of the topics that I'll be going over. First is the Maintenance and Operations Department. It's just an overview of the department, and this is information that has been shared before, so I won't spend a lot of time on this slide or the next slide. But there's several distinct programs in the Maintenance and Operations Department. And we do deferred maintenance, preventative maintenance, repair and upkeep, and then also emergency maintenance. And as you know, we work with the sites, the personnel from the facilities and operations personnel that are on the sites, to be our eyes and ears of what's going on and what needs to be repaired, but also to assist the facilities department in some of the repairs as well. And this slide, this is just a reminder of, we have 23 different facilities, a little over 2 million square feet altogether, sitting on about 163.5 acres. And every year we go through and complete or create a capital improvement project list for the next year. And our goal always is to make sure that all of the facilities are safe, secure, comfortable, and operate efficiently. As you may or may not know, the annual budget for the capital improvement projects is $1.2 million annually, and that's allocated by the board. And we feel that it's the minimum amount that's required for funding to maintain the buildings, and that helps with, in part, for our boiler replacement and repair, roofing, hard surfaces such as cement and blacktop. And as we've talked about before, as the buildings age, more work and then therefore more money is going to be required to maintain the status quo. Some of the projects that we completed this last year were roofing projects, and they were all roofing projects that were part of our roofing master plan that we had in place. It was the Wellness Center and the Maintenance Building, which is at 9333 West Lincoln, the Franklin and Jefferson Field Houses, the Central High School Auditorium, and then Donkey and the West Dallas Athletic Complex. And that's the bathroom building, and I believe the concessions operate out of that as well. Some of the different projects, we did completed HVAC upgrades at Mitchell. That was part of the DOT grant, so there was no cost to the district. You can see that we did some work on the Nathan Hale boilers. That was about $256,000. Fire alarm replacement at Central and Pershing. And then we updated the in-house security system at about half of our schools. One of the projects that we delayed because we didn't have enough information to know which projects to move, which specific sites to move forward with, was parking lot replacement. And we're working on getting an assessment for all of the sites, and then we'll establish priorities based on the severity of the need. And the average cost, as you can imagine, for replacing a parking lot can go anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 to upwards of $1 million, depending on the size of the parking lots, and then also the scope of the work that needs to be done. And the last bullet point says the scope of work dictates when the project is done. What I mean by that is if it's a small project, it's a repair project, that's something that may be done during breaks. If it's something that's a larger project, for example, say like the high school parking lot, then that's something that'll have to be done and completed in the summer. On page 7, you can see some of the projects that are proposed for this spring and summer. Our roofing, for our roofing master plan at Lane, Walker, Franklin, and Jefferson. We're currently in the process of getting bids for the parking lot at Nathan Hale. Anybody that's visited the Nathan Hale parking lot in the last year or two understand why Nathan Hale's parking lot is listed there. And then we're also looking at the boiler replacement for our boiler master plan at Mitchell, and that's estimated to be approximately $300,000. Round 2 of the Department of Justice Safety Grant. We are in the process of creating an application and applying there, and I've been working with Janet Delacat on this. And you can see some of the items here that are listed that we're looking at being funded out of that, such as security cameras. We have some old analog cameras, so we're looking at updating those. A couple of the big things are the bi-directional amplifiers. And what that is that increases the two-way radio signals that are used by the West Dallas Police Department and Fire Department. Currently, there are dead zones, what they call dead zones in our buildings, where the police and fire department are not able to communicate with other members of their department. So what we're looking at is assessing where those dead zones are in each of our facilities, and then getting an estimate of what it would cost to put the bi-directional amplifiers in, have them installed, and then that would eliminate that problem that we currently have. And then also the security entrances at Irving and West Milwaukee. These are the last 2 facilities that we don't have security entrances at. The architect is finalizing plans, and with some of the changes to the architectural rules by the state, we need to have firewalls installed in almost any new additions that we put on. We've worked with the state and also with the city of West Dallas and the village of West Milwaukee, and they approved our waiver of having to install the firewalls. So we went and met with the city planning department, attended committee meetings as appropriate, and we actually did receive then a waiver from both of those municipalities. So we will not have to have the firewall.
Steve, can I just add one thing going back a slide to the amplification units at the 2 high schools?
Yes.
The bi-directional amplifiers. So that also, as Steve was saying, it's an important for our communication tools with our local police and fire departments. In a couple of the larger incidents that we've had, especially the one that we had at Nathan Hale in the fall, some of the concern and the response to that was based on the fact that the radios don't communicate as well as they could and without the amplifier in the middle of kind of the large brick buildings like that. So some of that came from, it was allowable under the grant, and we were happy to include that as part of the grant because some of the follow-up to some of those incidents and with Marty and myself, as well as the collaboration with the police, was to say that really is more of a need for us than we originally anticipated, given the fact that many districts in our area have those, and it allows the police radios to work at any point in the building, which right now they still hit a couple of dead spots with our brick buildings.
I had a question. Would that also work for the internal radios that the staff uses?
I'll have to double check on that to see if they operate on the same frequency or if we can program so that they would, but I'll definitely check on that.
Yeah, I don't know that we've had too many concerns, Noah, with some of the communication within buildings. Many of the schools have upgraded what they used to have for some of those radios to be things that work much better in the schools. So, but I'm not sure if this works to help with the frequency on those radios.
And then one other question I have regarding the safety entrances. I may be mistaken, but I thought for some reason that those were included in the prior grant. Was that for other schools, or am I just misremembering that?
This is Caitlin. I can speak to that one. I think that you're just, I think you're misremembering it because these were the two that we've been talking about for quite some time. We were going to do them last summer, which is why I think that this is the one that you're referring to. And then we didn't have the bids in place that we were supposed to, so we had to do the process as thoroughly as we should. And that's why it got moved back to this summer.
But this is, so it says proposed, so this isn't a new grant, this is a grant we already got? Not a grant we're going
Yep.
for?
It's just the second, so there's a round one and a round two. This one we've had for almost a year-ish now at this point.
Okay, right. Thank you.
And then, Noah, there is one additional potential safety grant that's out there that Jana is working on putting forward a proposed application for at the present time, but these were both included in the ones we had previously received.
Okay, thank you.
The one thing I'd like to add about the security entrances as well, given all the uncertainty, our goal at this point is still to have these security entrances in place for the start of the 2020-21 school year. And then I just want to give a little update on what the facilities and operations staff has been doing during the online learning time. First, we'll start with the custodial staff. They went through every single site and they've been cleaning the buildings, and then they have been disinfecting the buildings and the tables and classrooms, the desks, the chairs, doing all that. For the most part, all of the sites are done. So now what they're doing is they're starting to scrub some of the larger areas, like the cafeterias and the gyms. We haven't started the classrooms yet because until we have, as Deidre mentioned, until we have further guidance as to what's going to happen with the Safer at Home order, we don't want to start taking classroom furniture out of the classrooms and place it in the hall, and then all of a sudden learn that we have to get it back in. In addition, because all of this came up so suddenly, I don't believe the majority of the teachers have had an opportunity to summarize, if you will, their classrooms. So we don't want to do anything to disturb the individual classrooms yet either until we have more guidance as to what's going to happen with the remainder of this school year.
Steve?
And also, last Tuesday, 5 of our sites, and you can see the sites here, were used for voting. And then we also, just as an extra set of precautions, we had supplied 10 bottles of hand sanitizer to each of the voting sites in case the poll workers ran out. And then also our custodian at Frank Lloyd Wright has been working with the community closets to supply food to the West Allis, West Milwaukee families and residents. We took all of the items that were at the community closets at different schools and we consolidated all of them to Frank Lloyd Wright so that we've had one location where everything has been distributed from.
And I just want to jump in and add something there to some of the work our facilities team has done in the last couple of weeks, which has been unbelievably amazing. And every time I say, hey, could we maybe think about doing this to help a family in need or to help a teacher or to help anybody, Steve's answer to everything has been, of course we can. Let me work with the truck driver and figure that out. Of course we can. Let me figure out how to make sure that everybody has, to the best of our ability, what they need right now. So it has been pretty amazing how most of the departments have all worked so beautifully together, but I have to give special kudos to our facilities team. The truck drivers are out delivering things as we need them to, and Steve and team have been in those really essential, urgent situations, been able to get things from buildings that families have needed, as well as getting creative with how to say, okay, so if we have requests coming in for the community closet, what's the best way for us to make sure we can say yes to those, and then figure out ways to support our families. So we've been really, really, really thankful for all of our departments have been amazing, but I would say facilities has definitely stepped up to the plate as well in a huge way to make sure that people have what they need, including collecting some of the supplies we weren't using this year that were masks and gloves and things like that, and donating them where we could, and all of those kinds of things. So it's been really, really impressive, and I'm really thankful to Steve and the team for that.
Thank you. And that leads right into this slide where it talks about some of the items that we have provided to the West Dallas Fire Department, also to Sodexo, to the technology department so that they could disinfect the electronics. And also, while that's been going on, Tim Detloff, who is our custodial services specialist, we got received a call from the West Dallas Fire Department, and they wanted to do their annual inspection now. So you can see towards the end of March, he went through every one of the buildings with the fire department so that they could do their annual inspection. There were some corrective issues that needed to be addressed, and we are currently in the process of doing that. There was nothing major. It could be something where, for example, if we have a fold-up table that's located near an exit, those can be there, but they need to be secured to the wall so that in the case of an emergency, they don't accidentally get moved out into the doorway and block the door. So we've been doing a lot of different things as the online learning has been taking place. The maintenance staff, in conjunction with the communications department, we put up signage at all of the entrances to our playgrounds. And Beth and Tess designed the graphics, and then Dawn from the print center printed them and laminated them. The maintenance department went up and put them up. If they were blown down, if they disappeared, we went back as we were made aware, and we put additional signs up or replaced the ones that had been taken down. We've been working on a lot of our work orders, and we've been able to be a little more efficient because we haven't had to wait until the students were out of the classroom to be able to go in and do the work. So we've been doing that. One of the things that we did as well is all of our pools we drained them. So therefore we won't have to use any of the chemicals to keep the pools clear. We won't have to run the heaters, and there won't be any pumps being used to run the mechanicals. So that will save the district some money. Also what I did is I worked with our recycling and trash service. And what I did is I worked with them, and we did what they call seasonally suspended the service at all of our sites, with the exception of the 2 sites that are producing food for our students and the community. And so we're estimating that will save approximately $10,000 a month by not having them come and provide services that we don't need at the facilities other than the 2 that I mentioned. And then also what we can do with 8 of our buildings are completely automated. So we can access at those buildings and the others, we can access the equipment and do inspections that way to make sure that everything is operating okay. What we also did is we reprogrammed the outdoor air exchange rate, as you can see, from 4 times per hour to 15. And what that does is it just it increases the amount of fresh air that's brought into the building. So for our workers that are there, we're providing them with personal protective equipment. as needed, but we're also increasing, as I said, that air exchange so that the air is fresher as well. So we're trying to do everything that we can to make sure that they stay as safe as possible.
Steve, can I jump in real quick, please?
Of course.
Okay, I just want to say thank you to all of our public who are still on the meeting, and I just want to make a note that unfortunately we cannot continue to respond to comments during the meeting. But that if you do have comments that you are making in the chat, we are noting them, and we will make sure that you do get a response again between now and the next scheduled board meeting as normal public comments would. But I just wanted to let you know that we would not be able to respond to them live in the chat just due to the way that meetings are structured in the state of Wisconsin. So I just want to make sure everybody had that expectation before we kept going. So thank you very much.
Steve,
We've got one question in here too, Steve.
can you hear me, Steve?
Okay.
This is
Yes.
Noah. Just going back one slide regarding the fire inspector, were any of the findings of troubling note, or like major things that need to be corrected? Were they minor things in your opinion?
No, they were all minor things in our opinion.
Okay, great.
You know, things that we can easily correct and with a minimal amount of time and minimal amount of budget impact.
I always like to hear that. The other thing I wanted to say was just, I like the fact that you're being so proactive regarding looking at cost reductions to the district regarding the building upkeep. So just wanted to give you and your staff kudos on that, making sure like getting pools, which can be very expensive to maintain, getting those drained and out of use because we're not going to be using them. Doing as much as you can to stretch our dollars that we have right now for what we're going to have to use moving forward. So I just wanted to provide you and your staff those kudos.
Thank you. And before we did that, we had conversations about for the pools, for example, of how much lead time are we going to need to get those pools back up and operational? Mm-hmm. And the answer is it'll take 5 days.
Okay.
So all we need is 5 days and we can have them back up and running. And the trash and recycling services, as soon as I send them an email within 1 and possibly 2 days at the most, we'll be back up with the services running. So going to slide 12, talking about the truck drivers, you can see again some of the items that they've done. They've assisted also with cleaning and disinfecting at the buildings. Also, we reorganized and cleaned out some of the areas at the district office on 5th floor. So they assisted us with that. We had accumulated items that no longer needed to be stored there, and now it'll give us more space so that we can be more efficient there. And so they helped a lot with that as well, because a lot of the things that needed to be done, we just needed more than 1 or 2 sets of hands. So again, anything that anybody in the facilities department has that I've asked them to do, they have done, and they have done willingly and gladly. So now we'll switch gears a little bit to go to the long-range facilities master plan. As you know, this process started in January of 2019, and the administrative planning team, or APT, you can see a list of the members that are on that committee or on that team. And all of them, with the exception of the last 2, are members of the school district, West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District. And then Gray Architects has team members, and also CJ Schmidt has team members that are part of this as well. And what we're doing with this is all a team approach. And so what we're going to do is we'll be doing outreach regarding the facility planning. It will be with the APT and then also the facility advisory community team. And then these groups are going to be engaged in numerous discussions, and then all of that will get reported back to the Board of Education. They'll receive recommendations, they'll review and revise those recommendations, and then approve plans and or projects moving forward. So this slide here is just an organizational plan of what the long-range facilities master plan process, kind of who will be involved. And the main point of this slide is to show that there'll be opportunities for input from various stakeholders, because we really want to get input from everybody, because once we have that input from all the different stakeholders, and all the different perspectives, then that really allows us to make the most informed decision and recommendation going forward.
Steve, this is Gary Schultz. I have a question.
Yes.
For the Facilities Advisory and Community Team, the FAC, who's going to select the community members that will be on that? Will be Bray and C.G. Schmidt? And what process are they going to use?
They will have, Bray and C.G. Schmidt will have an opportunity to provide their input, but that mostly will be done by the administrative planning team. There's a form that has been filled out, an application to be on that part of that team. And we'll go through those applications, and based on the dynamics of who we want to have or who we feel is best to have on that committee, we'll go through those applications, and then we will make the selection based on that.
How was the public informed about that application to be on that team?
I believe when we had the superintendent's updates, when he had those meetings at the different places, their applications were available there. They're also available, I believe, online. And then there have been some people that have reached out to Beth to say, I would like to receive an application. And then as I've received calls from community members or others, I've given them the link to the application as well.
Yeah, so I can jump in on that one a little bit too. Gary, then to the rest of the word as well. So Steve was referring to the state of the schools presentations, and so at the end of each one of those, Marty did open it up to the community. Marty also talked about it at his city schools meeting and a couple of other locations where there were access to the broader community to make sure that families knew that they had input, as well as we've gotten a few staff members who have reached out based on just communication that we've put out to our district staff as well, to express an interest in being on that team. So those names have all been so far filtered to Beth. And then we'll come up with a process for figuring out who the long-term planning team is from the people who are interested, or continue to do more outreach if we don't have enough applications to get a well-balanced team. Because the goal is to make sure that we have representation from multiple different community groups to really be sure that it broadly represents our whole community.
Okay.
This is Noah. So there was not an email that went out to all our staff, our family members, or like information disseminated to the PTAs for their distribution at all about this?
Not that I know of yet, but I can follow up on that and get back some more information on that one.
But the applications have already been like filled out and the time has closed for those to be sent in, or this is ongoing?
No, that's ongoing. Yeah, the team hasn't yet formed. It would have a few weeks ago. We would have had probably some more progress on that one, but given the current circumstances, that the team has not yet been determined or finalized. No, so there'll be lots of opportunity for us to continue to recruit people. Again, the goal being to get a really nice representation from elementary, intermediate, and high school across our district, so that we be sure that we're getting good input from everyone.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would suggest those two avenues just as a starting point.
Okay, thanks. We'll add that down to the notes and continue our outreach.
Thank you. Okay, so the administrative planning team, or APT, here's their role, some of the different items that they are responsible for. And then you can see at the very bottom that we have had 2 meetings. One was on February 10th and the other was March 2nd. We did introductions at the meetings of, because Bray and C.G. Schmidt, depending on the topics for the meeting, would have different personnel there. We've gone over high-level timelines, and then we've also discussed next steps. One of the things that was suggested at one of the meetings was that we create a communication subcommittee, which would be made up of 1 or 2 members of the Bray team, 1 or 2 members of C.G. Schmidt, and then Beth and myself. And then what we would do is we would work on the communication of what needs to go out to who, and how do we best disseminate that information to all the various stakeholders, and then what form should it be disseminated in. So that's what the charge of that communications subcommittee is. And then as with anything else, communications is essential to making sure that the long-range facilities master plan is successful. As you can see, we talk about the parents, teachers, students, community members, other stakeholders, that we want to make them aware of the process and what we're doing and where we're at and what's coming next. And what we want to do is come up with a unified vision for the physical space that is and will always be so important to our future. And right now, this is what's proposed for the membership of the Facility Advisory Community Team. This is something that is not written in stone yet, but this is what we're looking at, to have 3 teachers from the different curricular areas, 3 principals, and we want to make sure that deeper learning is involved in that, representatives from the facilities department, and then parents, 1 from each of the schools plus an alternate, and then also to have community stakeholders. And then one part of what will happen with the FACT team is that they'll be trained in the design thinking process, and they'll use this process to gather and consider information and then also develop recommendations. And as we talked about before, one of the main thing that we're working on right now is the facilities assessment, looking at every part of the buildings, the mechanicals, the electrical systems, the water, the utilities. We're looking at all of that. And we've developed a schedule, and that schedule has been revised a little bit because of the current conditions. And right now what we're looking at is touring all of the sites with the different assessment team that you see here, such as the architects, civil engineers, plumbing, different assessment team members like that. And we're looking at the last week in April, and then also that will continue into the first week of May, so that by the end of that first week of May, we will have gone through all of the facilities and looked at everything within those facilities, and then all of that information will be put into the long-range facilities master plan when it's developed.
Steve, is that work going to continue regardless of the stay-at-home order, or is that contingent upon that stay-at-home order ending?
It'll go on regardless. It'll be a little more efficient when the students aren't in there, only because we won't have to worry about, when their students are passing to classes and that. But the majority of what they really want to look at is some of the classrooms, but more importantly, they want to look at the mechanical systems within each building and the infrastructure of the building itself. So, like I said, it would be a little easier if students are not there, but if the students are there, it's still something that we can work around, and we'll still be able to keep that schedule.
Thank you.
So we talked about communication is key to this, and the Board of Education is also key to this. So we're going to establish a link on our district webpage that has the facility planning logo. And then that link will provide readers with meeting notices, the agendas, and then also the presentations will also be monthly in our district newsletter, and then also on social media. Board of Education, as with tonight, will receive regular updates on the status of the long-range facilities master plan, different tasks that have been completed, and then milestones and when those milestones are, any scheduled updates, and then next steps. And then the Board of Education also will approve the overall facility planning process, and then also guide and attend workshop sessions and school tours. Then, as we talked about before, phase 1 of this is learn. And here the teams will be working to build a better understanding of the educational adequacy and design thinking. And so there'll be reports and information for analysis, and decision-making will be gathered. And then what we'll do is we'll analyze that information and then conduct empathy interviews. And again, gather all that information, revise it all, and then make sure that we present that to the board and to other stakeholders as well. And for APT, they'll be responsible for hiring the engineering firm, the architectural firm, and the construction management firm, and those two have already been done. We're looking at hiring a enrollment firm, so they would do a demographic and enrollment analysis for us. We received recommendations of firms from the our architectural firm, Bray Associates, and we sent out inquiries to them, and we've received 2 quotes for that, and we're in the process of reviewing those quotes and looking at the scope of work that each of them has provided us with. And then those firms are all going to support the long-range facilities master plan. And we have been and we will continue to select the different firms according to all West Dallas, West Milwaukee Board of Education purchasing policies.
Hey, Steve?
Yes.
It lists an engineering firm separately from the architectural construction management firm. Is that in addition? Because I know we hired an architectural firm and a construction management firm. So the engineering and enrollment are the 2 new ones for me.
Yeah, so the enrollment firm is something that the district will pay for separately from the cost of the architectural and the construction management firm. And then the engineering firms will be hired as part of the architectural and construction management firm contracts.
Okay, and the engineering firm, we haven't got any work on that done yet, or is that's completely outside of our hands because that's being done by the architectural firm?
Yes, it's hired by the architectural firm in conjunction with us, and the engineering firm will be part of those school tours that will take place the last weekend in April and the first week of May.
Thank you.
Well, so then,
sorry, Steve, just to add something to that. So no, the enrollment firm, that's some of what we talked about before, but we haven't moved forward with that one yet.
Okay, I mean, the enrollment firm to me makes sense, so I was just wondering about the engineering firm really mainly, so thank you though.
Yep.
So then, phase 1 of FACT, you can see some of the different areas that they'll learn about during phase 1 and some of the questions that they'll be considering. Such as how do state-of-the-art learning environments compare to our current elementary school facilities? Same for our secondary school facilities. As I'm sure you're aware, some of our buildings were built in the 1920s, but we're trying to do 21st century learning in buildings that were built in the early 20th century. So we're going to look at that and say, okay, what we have, what do we need to do to get to where we really need to be for our students so that they can all be successful? And again, you can see the last bullet point, we're going to use design thinking as part of this process as well.
And I'll jump in just really quickly on that one. So design thinking is something that we use regularly in schools, and it's part of that flip process that we use for schools as they're diving into the deeper learning work. So it was really important for us to remain consistent with that process when we worked with the FACT team. Steve, the 2 meetings that we've held so far that were a collaboration between communication and our business office and leadership and learning and Bray and CG Schmidt have been really, really well run by Steve and team and really productive. The thing that I found exciting about that work so far working together is the vested interest, especially Bray. I mean, CG Schmidt's a little bit more familiar with us, but especially Bray has taken and really understanding what our deeper learning work looks like. So every link that we sent them around understanding that work, or if we've had the opportunity to be in a podcast or the videos that we make through the Misfits, we've shared a bunch of that with them, and they're really anxious to understand what we're trying to do so that they can help us maximize where we can do that within what we have, as well as what their recommendations would be to grow from there. So that's been an exciting partnership so far, and we're looking forward to continuing that work together as a team.
And I'd just like to piggyback on what Deidre said, is that in working with Bray, they've done this for a variety of school districts within the state, and a lot of them that are geographically close to the West Dallas, West Milwaukee School District as well. But one of the things that they emphasized over and over is that they are not going to use a cookie cutter mold with this. That they're going to, as Deidre said, listen to what our needs are, what we're really looking for, and then take what they've done in the past and, you know, mold that to fit what we need so that we really get the best long-range facilities master plan that we can. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. So if there are any additional questions, I'll take those now.
Yeah, Steve, I just had one more, I should say, regarding the FAC committee team. So the makeup of that committee is listed as 3 teachers, 3 principals, etc. It says 3 teachers, curricular areas. So are those teachers mainly going to be, is it one from like elementary, you know, intermediate, and high school, or are we looking at math, science, and CTE? What is the plan for that? And I guess the same question with regard to principals. Are we going to get one from each age area, or what is the goal?
So the goal is to have as well-rounded makeup on those committees as we can. And so yes, we're looking for somebody from the elementary, the middle school, and the high school area. And then if we find that 3 is not enough of either teachers or principals, and that's why I said this was proposed, then what we'll do is we'll increase the number, because there again, we don't want anybody to feel that they did not have a say in this, that their input was not wanted or needed, because it is. So that's one of the items that we'll be working on at our next FACT meeting, or our APT meeting, is, you know, trying to further solidify, you know, what each of those, I guess, groups will look like, and how many there need to be from each.
And it's really important for us to make sure that we do include a variety of teachers beyond our core teachers as well. A great example of that is some of the work we're doing at Frank Lloyd Wright. So we know we have our next generation learning communities there, and there are these beautiful collaborative spaces for students and for core academic teachers. But next year, as we've talked about before, they're going to do some push-in from the specials. And so the CTE teacher will be pushing into the humanities block, and the art teacher will be pushing into the STEAM block. So getting input from people who are starting to do some of that deeper learning work in this interesting and cool and different and amazing way might lend us in getting their input towards maybe buildings need to look less like there's a lab all the way over here, and find some more modular ways to embed some of that right into core classroom opportunities as we start to do that work to go forward. And so it'll be really important to get some, you know, different perspectives in that room to be sure that we have kind of all of that covered as we do that work going forward.
And I guess that was really my concern with only 3 from each, that might not be enough to get those different perspectives, considering all the different things that many of those things might want or require, depending on what we're looking at. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of point that out. So I hope that number will increase, especially for the teachers involved.
I have a question. This is Gary. I have a question about the fact. Have we, I guess maybe it would fall into community stakeholders, getting the business community involved?
Yes, some of the applications that we received already, and I don't remember what their role is, but I know it's been some of the West Allis, West Milwaukee, West Allis, West Milwaukee, the West Allis, I think like the city planner, I think he was, that individual has submitted an application, and there were a couple others as well that have submitted applications.
Have we considered reaching out to the West Allis, West Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce to see if they might have business leaders in the community that would have an interest?
That was a discussion that we did have as well, yes, about reaching out to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and Gary, you know, we have some strong community partners that have been doing some of that work through youth apprenticeship and some of that work with us for years and years. And so we'll certainly extend the invitation to some of those community members as well, because they do a ton of work with our learners especially.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Steve. I
Thanks for all
appreciate
your work, Steve.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all the work.
pleasure.
All your
Thank
training.
you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will take a quick break then while we break down off of public meeting, and we will take 5 minutes and then come back in executive session. So everyone can log off the Zoom, and then we will log into our executive meeting in about 5 minutes. So thank you, everyone. We're at recess. into open.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded to go back into open session, and then we'll do roll call, yes or no, to go back into open.
Okay. Mr. Keller
Yes.
and Mr. Bailey is excused. Ms. Klug,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Sikich,
Remotely? Yes.
Mrs. Justum,
Yes.
Mr. Ustruck,
Yes.
and President Emmons.
Yes. So we have one item to consider in open session. We have a motion to approve potential retirement of an employee based on the agreement discussed in closed session.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. That is the last of our action items, so then we would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for being involved, and stay safe, stay healthy.